Welcome to Behind the Mic with AudioFile magazine. I am Joe Reed, and I have Michele Cobb with me. She's been with me for the week. And how are you bringing this to a close, Michele?
Abundance: How We Build a Better Future, written and read by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson.
Mhm. Well, I subscribe to The Atlantic. Derek Thompson writes for The Atlantic and to the New York Times and listen to Ezra's podcast. So, yes, I've heard about this book a few times.
Yeah. Well, the book really argues that the US suffers from self imposed scarcity in housing, healthcare, and clean energy, due in large part to regulations. So, some people have called the book out for maybe oversimplifying the issues and potentially downplaying other key factors, including corporate power, harkening back to careless people that we talked about this week,
Exactly.
inequality, and environmental concerns. But I found the book well researched, and the background story about how they put together where we got today, it did a good job, I felt, of laying out the case. And I thought it addressed the key issues, especially regarding inequality. So the authors threw out a lot of references and a lot of numbers, which sometimes in the audio format, it's like, wait, I did a lot of like, go back, let me listen to that again. And it was just my reactions. Again, out walking, people probably thought I was a little nutty because I just kept going, no, what? Aloud and then rewinding to hear it again. So,
Well, I think a couple of things can be true at the same time. I mean, it can be because of corporate power and inequality and environmental concerns, and we can be overregulated.
yes.
These things can all be
And
true.
they put together a case really for deregulation, laying out how especially local rules might block development and how zoning restricts building. So all of those things could help to relieve the pressure. Now it's very interesting that this was written during the former administration, and it feels a little bit odd in context today, especially since the current administration is walking away from clean energy.
Walking away, yeah, that's putting it nicely. But here's I'm putting a good spin on this. Are you ready?
Yes.
That this could be one of the books we use to how to build the country again
Yes.
after the Trump administration.
Regardless about what you think about their ideas and their suggestions for navigating change, especially around regulations, I found it interesting, compelling, and solidly narrated because they seemed engaged and passionate about the suggestions.
And Ezra knows his way around a microphone.
They both do, actually. I had trouble distinguishing who was who. Their tone to me isn't particularly different. But I realized that I would say housing, he would say housing quite clearly. So, I realized whenever someone said housing, that was Ezra, and those were his chapters.
How do they what was it, chapter by one would do one chapter, one would do another?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
But truly, I was like, "Wait, did the person s I think the person switched." I mean,
So, who are we going to hear from?
this is Ezra talking about the concept of degrowth.
Okay, this is Abundance: How We Build a Better Future, written and read by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson.
To maintain the climate we've had, or anything close to it, requires us to remake the world we've built. One vision that is popular in some corners of the left is called degrowth. It holds that climate change reflects humanity's thrall to an impossible dream of endless growth. Rich countries must accept stasis, shuttering or scaling down major industries, and poor countries must grow more gently and prudently. Degrowth is simultaneously much more and much less than an answer to the climate crisis. It is much more than an answer because it is not really about climate at all. It is an anti-materialist philosophy that holds that humanity made its fundamental errors hundreds of years ago, trading the animism of our ancestors for Christianity's promise of dominion over nature. The problem is not simply greenhouse gas emissions or microplastics. It is Cartesian dualism and American-style capitalism and everything these systems of thought and practice have taught us to value and prize and want.
I know that voice so well. I am just so used to it. And I think he is very smart and very thoughtful. He's willing to engage in argument. And I don't
Yes.
mean that in a contentious way, but he's willing to have a back and forth with someone. And I really, really like that. There are very few people who do that. They mostly want to be agreed with, but he does. And I appreciate that. So I can see how this would be a very well thought out book. And Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson really hashing that out together in producing this book.
Yes, and I think your point is an excellent one. To me, there's an invitation to dialogue about this in an important way.
Yeah. Okay, that is Abundance: How We Build a Better Future, written and read by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. Well, Michele, you and I are saying goodbye, but listeners get to hear you tomorrow in a bonus edition of Behind the Mic, your interview with Whoopi Goldberg
Yes,
about her Audio Award winning book, Bits and Pieces.
all about her life and lessons and all of that. It's a fascinating book.
And it's also a great interview. You won't want to miss it. That's tomorrow on Behind the Mic. Michele, you and I will say goodbye today.
Goodbye today, but we shall talk again.
Goodbye today. We definitely will next month. Thank you. Support for Behind the Mic comes from Dreamscape, an award winning audiobook publisher with a catalog that includes authors L.J. Shen, Frida McFadden, and Katie Robert. Discover your next great listen at dreamscapepublishing.com. If you like Behind the Mic, leave us a rating and please follow us on the platform of your choice. I'm Jo Reed.